Hello, this is Michael Lapreciosa from Shuto Karate Club of Sellersville. This video is going to be an introduction to kokutsu-dachi Shuto-ge. Say what? All right, that's Japanese. We're going to switch to English and we'll come back to the Japanese again at the end. But before I do, yes, in case you're wondering, the Shuto in Shuto-ge is the same as the Shuto in Shuto Karate Club. All right, with that out of the way, let's look at how to do it. So, kokutsu-dachi is translated as back stance, and Shuto-ge is translated as knife hand block. And we will separate them at the beginning. We'll look at each one of them separately, and that's how you should practice them when you're learning. Start with the stance, practice the stance, and then practice the technique, and then combine them when you're comfortable with each one of those. So kokutsu-dachi is called back stance. If we have forward stance, look at where my torso is. It's kind of forward towards the adversary or the opponent. In a back stance, I'm more like this. So my body is moved a little bit away from the action. It's a little more considered a little more defensive position. Also, another reason it's called back is because most of your weight of your body is over your back leg. And if you stand here for a while, you'll feel it, which is actually how you should train. You should train by just standing in stances to make yourself mentally tougher and to feel your strength of your legs here. So that's why it's called back stance. So how do we make the back stance? We start with our heels together, lightly touching, and the feet pointing in 90 degrees different direction. So these toes are pointing this way, these toes are pointing this way. And now what I'm going to do is take one leg and move it out a distance about 1.5 of my own shoulder width. So 1.5 of my shoulder width, that's the length of this stance. It's just a rule of thumb. Everybody's anatomy is a little bit different, so it won't be the same. But for me, roughly looks like this. So my heels are still on the same line. I'm actually going to put them on the line here. This is how, if you have a way to put a line on your floor, or if there is a line, you can line your heels up because they should always be aligned. So in the back stance, okay, if I had my weight equally distributed on both legs, and I were to drop plumb line or just the ends of my belt from my knot of my belt, it would reach a place on the floor halfway between my 2 feet. In the back stance, however, I'm going to bend this leg more, put more of the weight on the back leg, and shift my center of gravity backwards. So now these belt ends will point to a place on the floor that's about 2/3 of the way from the front foot to the back foot. It's closer to the back foot. And that's why I say you should have about 60 to 70% of your weight on this back leg. So this leg is very bent, and yet these toes are still pointing this way. This leg is slightly bent, and these toes are pointing this way, and my torso should be upright. Okay, so how do you move in this stance? So do it viewing from the front here. So as always, we move from our hips first. So my hip is going to turn this way, and it's going to bring the back foot next to the front foot. The back foot has already turned 90 degrees. It's in the same position it's going to end up in. This foot's still pointing this way. Now as I step through, I slide down the ball of my foot to the approximate length of the stance. Don't land on your heel, by the way. Land on the ball of your foot as a brake. It's your brake to stop you. And so this foot has now turned 90 degrees this way. So I'll demonstrate what my feet are doing using my hands. So that foot's pointing that way, that one's pointing that way. This one comes up, turns this way, and it slides out. This one comes up, turns this way. Now this one comes up, turns this way, and this one turns this way. So that's how you step with them. Bring the feet right, bring the stepping foot right past the other one, slide it along the same line, land, stop yourself on the ball of your foot, not your heel. They should continue in the same line, and don't lurch your torso forward. It's a common mistake for beginners when they're moving in back stance. They come here and then they lurch forward. No, you should keep this weight keep this torso back. So, and again, move from the hips, whether you're moving backwards or forward. Hips, hips, hips. Okay, that's kokutsu-dachi. The actual Japanese for dachi is a stance. It's a way of standing. Dachi or tachi means a way of standing or stance. In this case, kutsu means bend, and ko means back or behind. So basically it means the back leg is bent. When we're in a front stance, zenkutsu-dachi, the front leg is bent, the back leg is locked. So the front leg, front bending stance. Kokutsu-dachi, back bending stance. If you look at the films and photos of the old Shuto guys from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, often this front leg is straight. The knee is not bent. That's why they called it the back bent stance, I suppose. In modern times, most people, including us, we bend this one a little bit. It just seems better protection for the knee. So this one's bent a lot, and this one, the back one's bent a lot, the front one's bent a little. Okay, that's for the stance. Now the technique itself, Shuto, or it's translated as knife hand block. So first thing about the knife hand block is both hands are put into use as is almost always the case in what we do. Both hands have a job. One hand is doing the technique, the other hand is the hikite, or the pull hand. That's what hikite is, pull hand. So when we punch, this is the pull hand here. When we do shitoke, this is the pull hand here, P-U-L-L. So the position of the hand is the first thing to know. Fingers are together, thumbs are secured right alongside the hand, right alongside the side of the hand, and it's slightly bent. The thumb is not sticking out, it's bent and it's nestled against the side of the hand. Fingers are together, wrists are straight. So fingers together, thumb slightly bent against the hand, wrist is straight, and hand is flexed. So hand is flexed. Both hands take that position. They both flex. Like you could rest a cup of tea here. This one comes right under your sternum. You could have a cup of tea there and drink. Both wrists are straight. They're going to switch jobs. This one's going to do this, and then this one's they're going to switch, but they always keep the same position. That knife hand position. Shoulders relaxed. So how do you move? So start from, say, here. The one that's the draw hand, it's going to, the one that was a draw hand is going to be the next one striking. The one that just did the technique, just stick it out straight. Could be putting someone's eye, your fingers in their eye, could be pushing them. It could be reaching to grab them, because this one's going to pull in like this. This one comes up in a Dracula's cape, what we call this. You're covering the lower half of your face. It's a defensive position. This one's out. The elbows are almost, the two arms are very close together. There's not a big gap between them. They're not tied up with each other. This is also defensive. This is a defensive position. This one comes up, palm facing the ear. This palm is down. And even if you can stretch this arm past that, you get a good stretch in your tricep, and also you spring it for doing the technique. The more you pull it up this way, the more you're going to get coming the other way. So they're working together. One comes up, sticking out straight. The other one comes past the ear. This one, they both rotate at the same time. This one rotates to here under your sternum, and this one rotates down. The elbow drops several inches. The elbow starts up here, and it ends up down here. So this is a descending, dropping technique. It's dropping technique. It's like a karate chop, but it's done at an angle like that. What else can I say? The last thing I can say is that when you complete this one, if I were to face the camera and do it, I don't twist it this much so that my palm faces front. I twist it so that the blade edge of my hand is facing the front. It's a lot of stuff here, so the stance first, stance, 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 stance. Add now the technique. Put them together. This is the halfway point. This is finished. Halfway point, finished, halfway. Same goes backwards. Whoops. Well, I'm going too fast. Halfway point, back. Halfway point, back. So, there's one more thing about this. Shuto is usually called by Shotokan and other karate people knife hand, but it's not actually what the Japanese word means. Shu means hand, but to means sword. So it's actually hand sword. And that gives you an indication, number one, that it's not a block. It's a strike. And also that it's not only the hand, it's called hand, but the sword refers to this whole length from your elbow to the fleshy part of your hand here. Any of those can be the striking surface. Let's show with Bob. So I could strike with the hand. So you can see that. I struck with the hand here. I could strike with the wrist, down at the wrist. Or I could strike even close to the elbow. So, and this is an excellent striking surface. Actually, the hand is the least effective way to do it because that has the bend of the wrist in it. If you strike with the hand, you have the bend of that joint there. But if you strike here, there's no joint there. Bang, you're just hitting with that straight. So, Shuto uke, translated as knife hand block. Shuto is really hand sword. And if we were to be more accurate with how it's actual practical use, we would call it a strike. A sword hand strike. The word for strike in Japanese is uchi, so properly it would be Shuto uchi, it's a strike. If Bob had arm, I could be striking down at his arm and his elbow. But it is, like I said, it's a downward descending technique, and that's about it for the basics. So start with just moving in the stance back and forth slowly, then do the technique separately. Just practice this, both hands moving simultaneously, straight wrists and flexed hands, fingers together, all that stuff. Then put the two together and keep doing it over and over and over and over and over. Keep training, don't stop.